Today's video is brought to you by AlmostHeaven.com. Handcrafting at-home saunas since 1977. Want better sleep, less stress, and faster recovery? Now's the perfect time. Shop saunas, cold plunges, hybrids, and accessories. Use our exclusive code at checkout to save 5%. Link below.
All right, back alongside my good friend Bo Parrish. I'm Dave Erickson, and I really like this topic. And when you told me the buzzword for today's topic, I thought, you know what? I'm feeling like this right now. There are so many challenges in my life, and they're all business and they're all personal quests that I'm trying to accomplish. And sometimes I just run out of steam, and I wonder, is it all worth it? I wonder, should I quit and take a new direction, a new path? And today's topic is about quitting, Bo. But you say that quitting is actually, you have a positive spin on quitting, whereas I think quitting means I've given up.
No question, Dave. And as we previously discussed, the world has come to associate quitting with negativity, in that in some way, if you quit, you have fallen short of what it is that you are preparing to do, whether it be in a race, whether it be in an educational pursuit. Perhaps you're attaining a graduate degree and you decide at some point along the way, you know what, this isn't for me. And then you throw up your arms and at the moment you decide to quit. Okay. I think the world focuses on that exact point, that moment of surrender. You know, this inspiration came from a blog post that I wrote not too long ago that I called The Courage to Quit. Now, if all you ever do is throw up your arms and wave your white flag and say, I'm out, and you stop right there, well, then absolutely quitting is a bad thing. If you drop out of a race because you have a mechanical problem, if you stop short of your master's degree because there was a death in the family, those are unforeseen circumstances, and we all are surprised sooner or later at some point in our life. A common theme that you and I have been discussing over the last several weeks is life is not about what happens to you, but how you respond to it. So if you think about it, the sheer image of quitting is deciding not to continue on a path that is not working. Now, the world has told us to stick to it no matter what. It is socially unacceptable to quit anything in life. We are pursuing paths that are safe, that are comfortable, that are familiar, because we do not want to be seen as quitters. Far be it from us to live our entire lives unfulfilled, in other words, not living out our true desire, because we feel in some way pressure from society telling us because we started on this path, we must finish in this path. You know, think about what the world does to us along the course of our lives. I've never met a 5-year-old that, when asked, has told me, "Oh, I want to be an accountant when I grow up. I want to be a lawyer when I grow up. I want to be an engineer when I grow up." No, it's I want to be Superman. I want to be a professional athlete. I want to be a firefighter. But at some point, society starts to push our hopes and expectations down by by saying things to us like, "Get real in your dreams. That's never going to happen." And so eventually, when we hear enough of this, we start to believe it. You know, we are the sum total of our 5 closest friends. And in the case of our development, early on, even from teenager, just think back who your closest friends were in middle school and in high school. Chances are they had similar interests to you. And perhaps if that core group of friends would have started at age 5, 6, and 7, you guys could have gone on to be the next A team. Who knows? But at some point, authority or adults who had been marred by real life experience cross paths with you, and all of a sudden your imagination, your creativity became limited by what was, and the way that we heard it was what's real. Whereas if we could continue to hold on to what's possible, no matter what, and we had the freedom to pursue no matter what, with the ability to quit if one particular path wasn't working, well, then I think the world would be a much different place. And I think rather than encouraging young children to be real and to be practical, that we would just continue to encourage their imaginations to be fully engaged, to be fully inspired, and who knows what we could create along those paths. But chances are that any true success story we see now had to quit something or another along the way. I mean, I can think of Steve Jobs, in one particular example, is that his first go around with Apple, he was let go. Now, not that he made that decision, but the decision occurred nonetheless, and there was a temporary separation. And we all know the rest of the story. That only added to his determination, and he came back with a vengeance. And Apple is now considered one of the most influential companies that has ever graced the presence of this world. But there was an aspect of quitting that occurred along the way. So as we pursue our purpose, the reason that we were put on this earth, because it's not evident, it's not apparent the minute that we're born, it takes experimentation. And it's led first and foremost by our interests and the influences that are most closely associated with our family and our friends. Is that just because we're born with the ability to, say, run very quickly, doesn't mean we start on the path of running and we quit to pursue what we really desire, which is to play football, or which is to play golf, or anything that develops along the way. It's, do we have the courage in the moment to change paths and to adjust when everything in our core is telling us, don't quit, hold on, you'll regret it. Whereas I'm thinking the thing that I would more regret is making it to the end of my life and saying, I wish. I could have, but I didn't. To me, that would be a greater catastrophe than quitting along the way in an effort to rediscover what it is that I was created for. So quitting in a positive light is not the final step. Just like we've discussed, failure, if you allow it to be a setup and not a setback, then ultimately it can lead you to an even greater version of yourself than what you previously thought was possible. But it takes your courage, your intestinal fortitude to make the decision to quit what it is that you're not passionate about, knowing that you may fail in your new endeavor, and you probably will fail. Because if you think about any new pursuit, there is a proportion of talent and desire. And when you start out, your desire is certainly greater than your talent. But if you hang in, eventually your talent starts to grow and your desire starts to even out to where your talent now becomes dominant over your desire. And then at that point, you've reached a new level of talent, and we need to start to rediscover this whole process again. You know it best. In order to ensure your passion stays fully engaged, you are going to need to reinvent yourself in some capacity every 4 to 5 years. But it takes a tremendous amount of courage in order to quit what is not working, even though the world may say it is.
Boy, this is a great topic, and I understand the motivation behind quitting something that you're not passionate about and getting on to a positive path, a path that maybe you should be on in the first place. But for the people who are passionate about the path they're on now, but it's not working, quitting might not be the answer. How long, and this is a case-by-case basis, how long do you stay on this path before you say, it's not working, but I love it. I love it so much. This is what I want. This is what I feel like I was meant to do, but it's just taking longer than I thought it would.
Sure, Dave, and I can actually answer that with just the illustration of music. And being that I live in Nashville, which is the country music capital of the world, I meet people every single week that move to Nashville to pursue their passion of either songwriting or singing or production in any capacity. The magic happens in Nashville when it comes to country music, and people's hopes and dreams are made or crushed within my backyard. And so, in having conversations with these people, and I met a lady just last week in a Starbucks who was working as a barista who had been in Nashville for 10 years pursuing her passion for music, and it just hadn't worked out for her. So the question that I would ask in framing this response, and even though you love something and you're on a path and it's just not working out, at what point do you decide to quit what it is that you're passionate about in order to find a more practical version of your passion? Because in a perfect world, we would not need money. We would not need shelter to live, but unfortunately we do. And so the way that I would answer that is to hold yourself accountable. Now, it's different if you're single, if you're not married, if you do not have children. And so single people can get away with a little bit more pursuit, and they can quit a little bit easier than, say, those of us who are married and those of us who have children. But the closer you hold yourself accountable to what it is that you are pursuing, and the more people that you have speaking into your lives, and ideally those people are involved in the same type of activity that you are passionate about, that they would have expertise to guide you and to speak in to your current circumstance. And it's valid because they've walked your path before, and they can have a greater understanding for what it is that you are going to encounter. Is that if those voices start to become louder and louder and saying, Dave or Bo, I know you're passionate about triathlon, but it's probably not going to happen at this point in your life that you are going to do this professionally. And if you start to hear that enough, and you can actually start to experience financial setbacks and troubles to where you're having a hard time making your dollar every single month, really is, I think, more economic and financial than anything. But I would say as long as you can survive and hold on, I would say continue to pursue that passion with fierce tenacity. It's only at the point at which you start to compromise, I wouldn't even say your well-being, but I would say your survival at the expense of meeting that passion.
What comes to mind is when you're talking about pursuing that passion and not quitting it because that's what you feel you should be doing, is maybe reevaluate what your rewards are. What do you want in return for this path? Maybe it won't be money anymore. Or if we go to the triathlon example, well, I accept that I'm not going to be a professional. I accept that I have a time limitation on how fast I can go. Well, maybe it's okay to reevaluate and say, okay, here are my new parameters. I don't have to be up here to find satisfaction in this pursuit. Same thing with career or a hobby of someone who wants to pursue music. Well, maybe I'm not going to make it big, but maybe I'll be big in my small pond. Maybe I'll be big in the backyard. Maybe I'll just find joy in what I'm doing. It doesn't have to be commercial success.
So, in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to navigation, if we never take the time to define our destination, we will most certainly never arrive. Just use the example of planning for a vacation. Before we actually get in the car or on the airplane, we have to know where it is we want to go. If we're looking for sun, we go to the beach. If we're looking for the mountains, we go out west. So when it comes to knowing what it is that you want, shaped by your passion, you can certainly define the purpose for which you are pursuing this certain path. And this kind of goes back to our previous conversation on potential, because it all starts with your interest. In other words, we need some type of direction in order to decide which way we want to take our lives. In our examples, it's triathlon. we are at the stage where we're in our late 30s, early 40s. We're probably beyond our prime as far as reaching professional level where we are paid based on our performance to the extent where it is our livelihood. But that most certainly does not mean that we cannot pursue triathlon for the rest of our lives for the benefit of those incredible sponsors that we've been fortunate enough to acquire, like Timex, like Trek, like Scratch Labs, like Blue 70. These are wonderful global companies that have seen enough confidence in us as elite amateurs to put their name on us. And if you think about it like that, every single time we toe the line at a race, we are living our passion, which is swim, bike, run. But our purpose is not for financial provision. It's to create a greater platform for these wonderful companies that we're so fortunate to represent. So quitting within the parameters of doing it professionally, yeah, we probably reached that point. But that wasn't the destination that you and I had to begin with. We're looking to be ambassadors for the sport that we love, ensuring that everywhere we go, we represent our family of sponsors very well and filled with passion and desire so that it becomes contagious to all those that we surround ourselves with. Triathlon is the fastest growing sport in the world. Dave, when you and I race week in and week out, chances are we are going to encounter a first timer, a beginner who's never raced before and they're as nervous as they can be. And yes, it's become like second nature for us, and we're not doing it professionally, but that doesn't mean we can't be every bit as passionate about a professional while still holding on to quote unquote day jobs. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And what I like about an analogy you can use with triathlon and carry it over into other aspects of life is that at some point that you are trying to be the best that you can be, and it's not a matter of competing with the professionals or someone younger or older than you. And I like that part of the swim, bike, run part, triathlon community, is that I'm competing against myself, maybe in our careers or maybe in our marriages or relationships. Let's be the best we can be for the people around us. And we don't have to be the best husband of all time, the best employee of all time, the best that we possibly can with the potential that's inside of us. And that's what I'm kind of drawing from you, is that it's okay to not quite be elite, but if you can find that passion in yourself, go with what you have, and you'll be successful in those parts of your life.
And I love the way that you shape that, because it becomes a matter of inner competition, which is another platform for quitting. We need to quit comparing ourselves to the world around us. Is that as long as we are doing everything we can to pursue our greatest potential, now it's different than sitting on the couch and doing nothing to develop ourselves. But our audience is not of that mindset, and so we don't necessarily have to speak to that. So I am absolutely confident that our primary audience does not struggle with lackadaisical attitudes, with, oh, I'll just see where the day takes me. We're all focused, we're all determined, we're all training to become better versions of ourselves. But as long as we keep the competition internal, in other words, we quit comparing ourselves against what everyone else in the triathlon industry, in the running industry, in football, in business, whatever it may be, is that chances are we are going to be more passionate and live with more purpose and more benefit than when we would if we were constantly falling short. Because somewhere, someone is always going to be that much better. But it all becomes a matter of how you define better. You and I are not professional athletes, and we have very close friends that are. But those friends are not professional media experts like yourselves or passionate public speakers like me. The world would be a very boring place if we were all exactly alike. It's our interests that make us different, and it's a matter of us taking the time to pursue this path and discover what it is that we are most passionate about, And in order to get to that point, it is going to involve strategically quitting those things that we are less passionate about all along the way.
Bo, you've said this in the past, and I love this quote, and I think you got it from somebody else, but be yourself because everyone else is taken.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Dave.
And you have said it. Bo Parrish, thanks very much. Great topic on quitting. It is courageous, and I really find a lot of value in what we talked about today. Thank you.
Looking for a great at-home sauna at a great price? Get 5% off any indoor or outdoor sauna, cold plunge, or infrared sauna from Almost Heaven with my discount code DAVE, 5% off at checkout. For over 40 years, Almost Heaven saunas have been trusted as the top American home sauna manufacturer. Almost Heaven saunas deliver high-quality products and firmly stands behind the holistic benefits the sauna brings to your mind and your body. Again, get 5% off any order with my discount code DAVE, 5% off at almostheaven.com. There's also a direct link below this video.